Okay, so on to this stage of life. Story time. I don't like the camera there. Wonder what I could do about it. It's quite dark. Obviously, I got this hard hat on. The camera thinks this thing. Thinks this thing is, something else. Now, let's put the other light on, and then we'll get into this because I don't edit things, right? That's my style. Okay. So obviously, let's get this camera up here. Obviously, the running has done me well, and I fit in this tunic a lot nicer. I used to have a lot more bulge up here, but the good old Canadian insulation. And those of you out there are looking at me, obviously you see a bit of humor in this and that. Well, the nonverbal communication is that I'm from another era. That's the way I think about myself. If I keep playing up, obviously my relationship with the Canadian military as a stupid cadet, right? And a fucking retread or a reject. I don't know what else. This is like my moniker. I wear it. I'm still wearing my fucking psych ward wristband like a dog tag. And when I was young in cadets, truth be told, I was really into like a lot of other people, was really into the movies. And the dog, she's just gonna keep on doing this. I was really into the mystique and the allure and this mystery and the dangerous aspects of the job, just being a military person, obviously, and then like the killing, so to speak. So I was filled with a lot of anger, and obviously you can tell that like the other stuff that I've done, I am still filled with anger, for all the right reasons, what can I say? Now, what I'm wearing right now, besides this tunic, right, is my work pants here. These are just some black ladders with some knee pads in them. Obviously, I'm not wearing any socks right now because, screw that. But these are really great, they've been very good to me. And well, I first learned a black ladder because of Sky Climber. Now my relationship with Sky Climber didn't end very well, and frankly, the whole experience wasn't good to begin with. They didn't pay enough. The circumstances around my passport, I didn't have one at the time. This is probably like 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. In between Discovery Air and then it would have been Sky Service. I got a contract with Sky Service in Toronto, and then Venture Aviation thereafter. And then I left Venture, and I did some other wind turbine stuff where I was out with Frontier Pro Services, if I remember correctly. I was living in Windsor, Nova Scotia for a while, and pulled a rabbit out of a hat on that job with that turbine project. Almost died in a vehicle accident. I was driving a Dodge Ram, brand new one with no snow tires on it. I raised it up through the chain after doing safety and like doing the safety walks and stuff like that. But it's a rental and no one really gave a shit. And the engineer got fired or quit, something along those lines, and I had to fall back on my training, as an aircraft structures mechanic, the technician program, and devise my own repair scheme. And as far as I know, those blades are still up there. Excuse me, I just farted. Not that you needed to know. What am I leading into? Well, I'm going to read from the Leviathan. I'm probably going to do the intro if I haven't done that already, because it's about contracts, right? These agreements that we have. I think I did. Well, it's chapter 13 anyway. And such a warm with these unjust. I'll do the second part of Commonwealth because, it's about the social contracts. And this is like, this is absolutely essential for any kind of civilization. And men build civilizations, women maintain them. Women maintain the institutions, not men. Because what's the traditional psychological principles, or at least the roles, the gender roles. Men are looking outwards for threats outside the household, and women are trying to keep the house together as it is. So the breadwinner and the bread maker, right? Or the wheat slayer. That's a good way to put it. The wheat slayer, like a farmer or whatever. And I've had a lot of opportunities that didn't work out, and this is one of them here. I still have my climbing harness. I haven't done the high angle rescue. That was one of my points of ire with Sky Climber, was the fact that didn't happen. And I was so excited to do that because of the risks involved. And being a tower climber, being a rope access technician has the same risks involved as those the cellular tower climbers. My friend has done that. He's in British Columbia. He didn't do it forever, thankfully, because they have a high mortality rate. It's there's a documentary out there on YouTube, and that's what it's about. Because we're so reliant on wireless technology now, that we couldn't have civilization without it. And these technological prerequisites that are the basis of our civilization and support the institutions are maintained by social contracts. Without respect, without the Commonwealth, without some sort of altruistic spirit, then the fabric of society collapses. And you can't have so many influences and so many different cultures in one place at the same time. This is why there was so many wars in Europe throughout centuries, is because of the different tribal and historical lineages and legacies, and the kingdoms and kings and so on and so forth, the family histories, these squabbles over genealogy, and these hyperfixations upon who gets to sit on the throne next, right? All that stuff. And obviously I'm wearing a blue helmet. Those of you know what that is, and you know what that is. And I'll be back in a second, for a bit of relief. I'm going to open the door and let the dog do her thing, because otherwise she'll just keep on barking. I attempted to do a version of this video a long time, well, not that long ago, but I don't know, a few weeks ago, before I was put in the psych ward. Funny, isn't it? The most intelligent people that you'll ever know and you might ever meet are in the psych ward. And as I said to the PC in the car, it's a rite of passage, and for artists, and he said, yeah, philosophers too. Friendly conversation. Obviously trying to highlight the comedy of this situation. In fact, I was saying, well, life doesn't have to be as complicated as we think it is, and we get caught up with these stupid abstractionisms. Of how some people maintain their intellectual elitism in their jobs, quite frankly, by coming up with all these different conjectures of linguistics and multitudes of meaning and double entendres and esoteric bullshit, because it gets away from the actual message, and it's a reference to other esoteric knowledge that is basically, as I've said before, incestuous and circle jerking, masturbatory, hoopla, whatever. If I'm going to echo anyone else on YouTube by doing this video, it's probably going to be AVE and his fireside chats. Hey, how are you, man? Out there in BC. Tradesmen speak. Tradesmen, well, we're the lifeblood, right? We put that shit together. We make sure it stays together and running, and there ain't no replacement for it. The life experience of people like me is, here today and gone tomorrow. It can't necessarily be programmed into a robot. And no matter how many, social media profiles are put into an algorithm, there's always going to be a flaw because it's created by humanity. And a good tradesman knows and understands the flaws of the machine and works with them. Because you just can't be perfect all the time because of entropy. Things just want to fall apart no matter what, and there's nothing you can do about it. And the same thing happens to civilizations. You either wear your hard hat and be protected, or in Christianity, you wear the armor of God. And you become the ethos of and pathos and logos that you set out to be, as is expected by good social institutions and reinforced by family values and a core unit. This is the reality of things. Without a core unit and without that trust, then the whole thing falls apart immediately. And then there's no way to, Humpty Dumpty fell off the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Humpty Dumpty. What a numpty. Anyways, so what is Humpty Dumpty? Humpty Dumpty is an arrogant person with eggshell thick skin, right? That as soon as they fall off sitting on the fence or on the wall between the wilds in the kingdom, right? The protection of the kingdom, just can't be trusted. You know, they fall apart upon any kind of conflict. You know, and their perceived value, because they're so delicate and they're so unique, right? Um, don't read too much into this. What I'm trying to say is here is that, you know, these people that don't represent anything except the fragile nature of existence, you know, are the reason why we have social contracts. So let's get into this. I'll read the second chapter. I'm going to adjust the camera here, so bear with me. Down we go. Where it goes, nobody knows. Now everybody knows when you sit down and you take off your cap, headdress, whatever. Okay. Throw my feet up here. Barefoot mechanic, right? And let's relax. Is going to be a bit here. So why aren't I working right now besides the other stresses? Why did I walk off the job? Why did I yell and blow up on people? It's pretty obvious, you know, because the social contract was broken, the respect is gone, the compensation was not fair anymore, and the amount of risk individually versus a corporation or a company, you know, it wasn't equal anymore. Fair and simple. And when you're not getting the attention and the support that you need, you have to scream at the top of your lungs. And as someone else who's very wise has said before, that you know, you have to, in a psychopathic society, as you know, and I said this in my dispute, my verbal dispute on the lawn, you know, about 2 weeks ago, that you have to act like a psychopath in order to get anywhere in life, because there's just people out there that don't understand anything except, well, one, they're not smart enough to understand direction or the consequences of not following direction. Like, they're actually intellectually incapable of understanding empathy, right? There's obviously, you know, the bell curve of intelligence, as exemplified by, I was reminded of this on, I don't know if this is true or not, but the U.S. Military in Vietnam was with the misfits, right? They had an IQ lower than what was previously ascribed to be, you know, inadmissible under the draft. Their IQs were under like 80 or something along those lines. And so you need people that have to, you know, you need people that know and understand the abstract concepts and the theory that's behind the physical actions. And, you know, because an idea and a thought, so first a thought, or first an inspiration and then a thought and then an idea, and then manifested into reality through an action. So they, you know, in order to put people into stressful situations, they have to understand that, you know. And empathy is only, sympathy is most commonly solicited, but empathy takes higher intelligence to understand and to account for in everyday actions. So here we are, the second part of Commonwealth, of the causes, generation, and definition of a commonwealth. So this is from chapter 17 of the Leviathan. The end of commonwealth, particularly security. The final cause, end, or design of men who naturally love liberty and dominion over others, in the introduction of that restraint upon themselves in which we see them live in commonwealths, is the foresight of their own preservation and of more contented life thereby, that is to say, of getting themselves out from that miserable condition of war, which is a necessary consequent, as hath been shown, to the natural passions of men, where there is no visible power to keep them in awe and to tie them by fear of punishment to the performance of their covenants and observations of those laws of nature set down in 14th and 15th chapters, which is not to be had from the law of nature. For the laws of nature as justice, equality, modesty, mercy, and in some, doing to others as we would be done. So the golden rule, as we would be done to, of themselves, without the terror of some power to cause them to be observed, are contrary to our natural passions that carry us particularly pride, revenge, and the like. And covenants without the sword are but words, and of no strength to secure a man at all. Therefore, notwithstanding the laws of nature, which everyone hath then kept, when he has the will to keep them, when he can do it safely, if there be no power erected or not great enough for our security, every man will and may lawfully rely on his own strength and art for caution against all other men. And in all places where men have lived by small families to rob and spoil one another, have been a trade, and so far from being reputed against the laws of nature, the greater spoils they gain, the greater that their honor, and men observe no laws therein, but the laws of honor, that is, to abstain from cruelty, leaving to men their lives, and instruments of husbandry. And as small families did then, so now do cities and kingdoms, which are but greater families for their own security, enlarge their dominions upon all pretense of danger and fear of invasion, or assistance that may be given to invaders, and endeavor as much as they can to subdue or weaken their neighbors by open force and secret arts, for want of other caution, justly, and are remembered for it in ages after with honor. Nor from the conjunction of a few men or families, nor is it joining together of a small number of men that gives them this security, because the small numbers, small additions on one side or the other, make the advantage of strength so great as is sufficient to carry the victory, and therefore give encouragement to an invasion. The multitude sufficient to confide in our security is not determined by any certain number, but by comparison with the enemy we fear, and it is then sufficient when the odds of the enemy is not so visible and conspicuous moment to determine the event of war, as to move him to attempt. Nor from a great multitude, unless directed by one judgment. And B, there never so great a multitude, yet if their actions be directed according to their particular judgments and particular appetites, they can expect thereby no defense, nor protection, neither against the common enemy, nor against the injuries of one another. For being distracted in opinions concerning the best use and application of their strength, they do not help but hinder one another, and reduce their strength by mutual oppositions to nothing, whereby they are easily not only subdued by very few that agree together, but also when there is no common enemy. They make war upon each other for their particular interests. For if we could suppose a great multitude of men to consent in the observation of justice and other laws of nature, without a common power to keep them all in awe, we might as well suppose all mankind do the same, and then there neither would be, nor need to be any civil government or commonwealth at all, because there would be peace without subjection. And that continually, nor is it enough, for the security which men desire should last all the time of their life, and they be governed and directed by one judgment, for a limited time, as it is in one battle or one war. For though they obtain a victory by their unanimous endeavor against a foreign enemy, yet afterwards, when they have no common enemy, or he that by one part is held for an enemy is by another part held for a friend, they must need by the differences of their interests dissolve, and fall again into a war amongst themselves. Why certain creatures without reason or speech do nevertheless live in society without any coercive power. It is true that certain living creatures, as bees and ants, live sociably one with another, where they are therefore by Aristotle numbered amongst political creatures, and yet have no other direction than their particular judgments and appetites, nor speech, whereby one of them can signify to another what he thinks expedient for a common benefit, and therefore some man may perhaps desire to know why mankind cannot do the same. To which I answer, first, that men are continually in competition for honor and dignity, which these creatures are not, and consequently amongst men there ariseth on that ground envy and hatred, and finally war. But amongst these not so. Secondarily, that amongst these creatures the common good differeth not from the private, and being by nature inclined to their private, they procure thereby the common benefit. But man, whose joy consisteth in comparing himself with other men, can relish nothing but what is eminent. Thirdly, that these creatures, having not, as man, the use of reason, do not see nor think they see any fault in the administration of their own common business, whereas amongst men there are very many that think themselves wiser and abler to govern the public better than the rest, and these strive to reform and innovate, one this way, another that way, and thereby bring it into distraction and civil war. Fourthly, that these creatures, though they have some use of voice in making known to one another their desires and other affections, yet they want that art of words by which some men can represent to others that which is good, in the likeness of evil, and evil in the likeness of good, and augment or diminish the apparent greatness of good and evil, discontenting men and troubling their peace at their pleasure. Fifthly, irrational creatures cannot distinguish between injury and damage, and therefore, as long as they be at ease, they cannot offend with their fellows, whereas man is then most troublesome when he is the most at ease, for that it is that he loves to shew his wisdom and control the actions of them that govern the Commonwealth. Lastly, the agreement of these creatures is natural, that of men is by covenant only, which is artificial, and therefore it is no wonder that there be somewhat else required besides covenant to make their agreement consistent and lasting, which is common power, to keep them in awe and to direct their actions to the common benefit. The generation of Commonwealth, the definition of a Commonwealth. The only way to erect such a common power as may be able to defend them from the invasion of foreigners and the injuries of one another, and thereby to secure them in such sort as that by their own industry and by the fruits of the earth they may nourish themselves and live contentedly, is to confer all their power and strength upon one man, or upon one assembly of men, that may reduce all their wills by plurality of voices unto one will, which is much as to say as to appoint one man or assembly of men to bear their person, and every one to their own, and acknowledge himself to be the author of whatsoever he that beareth their person shall act or cause to be acted in those things which concern the common peace and safety, and therein submit their wills every one to his will, and their judgments to his judgment. This is more than consent or concord. It is real unity of them all, and in one the same person, made by covenant of every man with every man, in such manner as if every man should say to every man, I authorize and give up my right of governing myself to this man or to this assembly of men, on this condition, that thou give up thy right to him, and authorize all his actions in like manner. This done, the multitude so united in one person is called Commonwealth, in Latin civitas. This is the generation of what great Leviathan. This is the generation of that great Leviathan, or rather, to speak more overtly, that of the mortal God, to which we owe under the immortal God our peace and defense. By this authority given him by particular man in the Commonwealth, he hath the use of so much power and strength conferred on him, that by terror thereof he is enabled to form the wills of them all to peace at home and mutual aid against their enemies abroad. And in him consisteth the essence of the Commonwealth, which, to define it, is one person, of whose acts acts a great multitude by mutual covenants one with another, have made themselves every one the author, to the end he may use the strength and means of them all, as he shall think expedient for their peace and common defense. Subject what? And he hath that carrieth this person is called sovereign, and said to have sovereign power, and everyone beside his subject. The attaining of this sovereign power is by two ways: one by natural force, as when a man maketh his children to submit themselves, and their children to his government, as being able to destroy them as if they refuse, or by war subdueth his enemies to his will, giving them their lives on that condition. The other is when men agreed amongst themselves to submit to some man or assembly of men voluntarily, on confidence to be protected by him against all others. This latter may be called a political commonwealth, or a commonwealth by institution, and the former a commonwealth by acquisition. And first, I shall speak of commonwealth by institution. What do you think that means? It means that laws mean nothing without mutual benefit. And that the sovereign is corruptible if given too much power. Then the social contract means nothing. There's other parts to the Leviathan. If the sovereign is not looking out for your safety and security, or if the civitas is not looking out for every single person, which is almost impossible with governments, then their authority means nothing. And without people to enforce and to defend the castle walls, so to speak, then it also means nothing. The more I read the Leviathan, the more is known and understood. Naturally, that's in the common sphere of politics. Without weapons of war, then there is no Commonwealth. This will be in History of Propaganda. We'll put it in the 4th volume. Leviathan Part 2. Thanks for watching.